divide. Faith and life walk side by side. We take the word and make it clear, talking true for all to hear. Crossroads, where theology meets culture. Crossroads, stories, life, and scripture. Turn the corner, find the light, where faith and life collide tonight.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Crossroads. If you're tuning into the channel expecting a episode of Exposit today, I just want to be honest. There isn't going to be one. I took the weekend off, or the week off for studying for that, because we made that decision. And I'll be honest, with my men's Bible study, and we're going through practically the same sections of John at the same time. And with me, we weren't meeting because of Independence Day. We didn't meet, or we're not going to meet this Friday for our Bible study. And so to keep on the same track just for that, long story short, there isn't an episode of Exposit this week, but I still wanted to post something, and as I was thinking about what I wanted to post, I wanted to post a episode that, as we think about here in America, 250 years tomorrow, on July 4th, 250 years as a country since we signed the Declaration of Independence. and thinking about what that actually meant. 250 years ago, this wasn't just like some platitudes that we put on a piece of paper. The Declaration of Independence was in full honesty, a declaration of war. It was a treasonous document that, had we lost the war, had we lost the revolution, everyone whose signatures were on it would have been tried and hung as traitors to Britain. This wasn't a light cause that they were sort of signing their names to. This was 100% a cause that everyone believed in. They meant what they said. And I sit here, and this is going to be a more political episode than maybe a typical episode would be, because a lot of times what I like to do is mix politics and theology and culture and all of that together on these episodes of Crossroads. But this is going to mostly be more of a political episode, in terms of, from a political standpoint, is where I want to speak. And I don't even like having to differentiate that. So one of the things, I was thinking of a lot of different things of what I wanted to talk about for the Independence Day sort of episode, right? Do I talk about, what true freedom is? And you may get a lot of people who do a podcast of like, we're celebrating freedom, and here's how you could celebrate freedom in Christ or whatever. And that's fine. Not going to hate against those. But I was thinking, what's the angle? What's the message? What's the call to action that I want to leave you with as you listen to this? And I was thinking, well, I could make an episode urging Christians to get more political, and that's what I want to start with here. The founders of our country didn't differentiate their life into, well, this is my Christian life and this is my political life, and they're separate things. And on certain topics I'll be religious, and on other topics I'll keep those as political. That's not how life worked. Everything that they did that flowed from their religious life in every excuse me, in every area of their life, they were Christian. And so with that being said, like, we shouldn't have to have this argument, should Christians be political? Yes, I 100% I believe, as an American citizen, it is your responsibility to be educated and active in community life. One of the commands, and we've heard this, and I didn't want to make this the theme, because I think partially it's taking it out of its original context, where the idea of love your neighbor or love one another. As Christians, as Christians, we are to love one another. We should be known by our love, right? We went over that in John 14. And we understand that immediate context is Christian to Christian fellowship and brotherhood and all that. But we have this idea of, as Christians, we ought to show our love. And I have this issue with how we display love, or what we think love is in our culture. Our culture sees love as a noun. It's a feeling. It's a position that you are in. Where I love you, and it's flowery language. That's not love. Love, when you actually ask the question, what is love? Love is a verb. Love is seen and proven. That's why Christ says in the Gospels, if you love me, then you will obey. You will keep my commandments. Because the evidence of your love is the action that it follows through. And so I think we've misunderstood what love is. And so I think part of loving your neighbor and loving your community and loving each other is displaying a action that actually does something to maintain a society that is fruitful and one that is thriving. I don't think it's loving to just sort of sit on the sideline and say, well, we're Christians, we don't have to participate in politics. It's one of the things, like, I used to have a Jehovah's Witness coworker, and it's one of the things that as I started to talk to her and learn about her beliefs, their idea that Jehovah's Witnesses are separate from the secular society, and that politics is a secular art, excuse me, or a secular thing, and not to be participated in by believers. And I would just disagree with the idea that they're Christians. That's why I'm not calling them that. But this idea that religious people can live separate from, and I don't understand that mentality. I don't understand Christians who can live their life completely oblivious to what is going on around them. That would not have happened in 1776. We have people all the time who say we need to revive the spirit of 1776. Alex Jones, for years, used to say, I am the spirit of 1776. I'm going to say it like, I'm the spirit of 1776. Yet nothing ever got accomplished Um, and so, like, so many people want this political uprising. Now, notice what I want to market this. Politics is not going to save your soul, right? But David was political. Daniel served in Babylon and actually made it to like third in command in the entire empire by the time he died. In charge of the astrologers, basically, right? The wise men that came to see Jesus knew to pay attention for the star in the sky because of they understood from Daniel's prophecy, and they knew and they read and they understood. Daniel probably taught their grandparents or great grandparents or somewhere down the line, right? They understood because Daniel was political. Moses was political. Like this idea that you can just live a religious life separate from, which is why everyone thinks like the Amish and all of that are like thriving societies. That no. They're separatists. They think that they can live outside of. They don't have to participate in secular means, right? And I would say that in and of itself is not right. It's not moral. I don't think it's loving to sit here and say, well, we're going to let the secularist handle politics. That's actually the mindset that's gotten us into the problems we have today. Where the entire political realm is secular. and I truly believe that the spirit of 1776 that led to a revolution, I don't think we have that. And I don't think we actually want that, because that would actually mean we would have to do something proactive. Actually, and really just do something. And again, I don't talk to the liberals when I say this, because I'm fully aware that the Democratic Party is a party that has been taken over by the spirit of the age, by demonic forces, and there's no purpose in giving the time of day to try to change that. They're handed over, right? And once something's sort of handed over, you don't cast your pearls onto them and continue to try to change it, right? With that being said, still pray for people who are Democrats. Their hearts can change, but I don't personally believe in my own conviction that you can say you're a Bible-believing Christian who thinks with a worldview, and then look at the world politically and say, oh, I agree with the race commies who do sex changes and promote actual communism and actual unbiblical doctrines, and promote the religion of Islam, the destruction of Israel, whether you're dispensationalist or not. Like, I don't see how anyone could say, yes, I have a Christian worldview, but I'm going to go vote for the things that are completely against my worldview. We would call that foolish. Now, the Republican Party, the GOP, is not much better. I recognize that. But that's who I talk to. I'm talking to conservative Christians. That's my team. And one of the things that have really just, I didn't get started in the political process in terms of like being able to be an active voter until the 2016 election. So the last 10 years of what we would call like the Trump era of the GOP has been my entire voting life that I've known so far. And I came into that 2016 cycle super jazzed. Like I think that most people get into, they turn it, maybe it's just me, but turn 18, super excited. I know the newer generations, the youngest generations coming up that are starting to turn 18, they're sort of politically out of it. They just don't care. And I think that was created because they've seen it fail for so long, and they've recognized, well, it's never going to change. It doesn't really matter. So why? So they've gone nihilistic, right? And so I think we have to win them over. We have to save them from their nihilism. But they have a point. They do have a point. For the last 50 years or so, the political process doesn't benefit the common person. There is no real reason to be active. Now, I'm not saying get nihilistic and just stop caring. I'm actually saying the complete opposite is you have to be the voice to excuse me, to make that difference, because we have the Gen X generation, we have the Boomer generation that have been pretty apoplectic, pretty just not caring over the last 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, and have watched the country literally be taken over by gay race communists who are now promoting Islam as the religion of peace and sitting back while communities are being taken over. And my generation, the generations behind me, have to sit back and watch this knowing either we do something about it now, or there's going to be a lot of poo sandwiches in our future that we're going to have to face. And the young people who are actually interested in politics, this is actually very making me very optimistic. The young people who actually care, which I actually think there are more than we give credit for. I think we stereotype Gen Z, Gen Alpha wrongly. I think a lot of them, as they start getting the voting age, a lot of them do care, and a lot of them are being woken up to this, and I think that that's a really good thing. And so I do have hope that once we get the Boomer generation and the Gen X generation sort of out of politics, out of the political process, that the millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha can start taking over. And as I think we're going to see either one of two things. We're either going to see a complete crumbling of America under my generation, because I will admit there are a lot of moderate liberals, libertarians, who don't think from that Christian worldview, who are quite literally insane in some of their perspectives, and who have seen capitalism as the enemy because they've been either dishomed, they see it only working for the elite. And that's how when you don't address affordability, I've been saying for the last basic year, and not just me, I've been repeating from other political pundits as well. If you don't address affordability in 2026, that's how communism wins. Right? We have these people who complain about democratic socialists winning elections. Well, democratic socialists are popular because the democratic socialists are popular because the capitalists, or those who promote capitalist ideas, I would really say they're more corporatist. But what they see is capitalism as non-affordable, and they're going to just it makes DSA, or democratic socialism, it makes it look more appealing. If you took away the appeal of DSA, people wouldn't vote for it. But Republicans in particular, they don't want to address affordability. And what we have is a social media influencer class of the big sort of MAGA Inc., Con Inc., grift core that get the million views, the million subscribers, the large crowds, the million followers, who have the largest online influence, and what they go on their shows, and it's all white pill, vote GOP or we die, right? They'll pull up the same issues that I've just sat here and talked about, and they'll say, well, we promise you, if you vote GOP this time, that's the only way we can have a country to protect against these things. And then we vote, and then they never do anything. I've had three presidential elections since I've been allowed to vote. Every single time it's the same speech. Vote GOP, vote GOP, vote GOP. And in those 10 years, nothing's really changed. It's only gotten worse. And what has really happened is we've now sort of handed over a political authority to the courts that they don't have. The courts have zero political... They can't make laws. They interpret them, but their rulings aren't official law. And so we get like the ruling on the birthright citizenship thing. And rather than just saying you don't have the ability as the court to make this ruling, we've sort of just given them the power to say, well, by saying, well, we need a constitutional amendment, or we just need to keep voting GOP so we can put in better judges. What you're doing is you're giving credence and giving actual credibility to this idea that the courts have some sort of lawmaking power that they actually don't have. The easiest way to just go against this is saying, well, I know the court said that if someone had a child here, that child is an American citizen, but this is far right red state Louisiana, Mississippi, we're red state Florida, right? I know they came across the border on vacation and she was 7 months pregnant and she gave birth while here. So rather than giving a birth certificate to the child to say that you're an American citizen, no, neither of your parents are citizens or LPRs. So you're not an American citizen. Just don't hand out the birth certificate. And if it goes to court, then Congress, who has the power of the purse, can say, well, we're just not going to fund you. Courts, we're just not going to fund you no more. We're not going to fund the case. Right? There's a reason why the founders created checks and balances and didn't give the court their own power to fund themselves, because they knew it would be abused. But we're just giving that power to them. We're giving more power to branches of government that aren't supposed to have the power that we're giving them. We've given far too much executive power to the president. We've given far too much power to the legislative branch. We don't need a constitutional amendment. One, because the way the courts interpret the 14th Amendment is completely wrong. It's completely wrong. Right? So this was one of the things that I wanted to discuss. Like Christians, stop playing the sidelines, come back and take over culture, whether it's the media, whether it's politics, whether it's whatever, right? Excuse me. Like, Christians need to be more involved just in daily life outside of, like, as much as I love studying theology, at some point we have to be doers of the word, not just hearers, to mean be active, do something. And part of that is being political. Part of that is participating in your responsibility as a citizen of the country to vote. But then, that's harsh. That's a hard statement to hear. But I think it's something that's needed. Like, we need to be more active in our life. We need, like, the revolutionary people, the people who did the revolution, the founding fathers, the sons of liberty, didn't just risk their life. A lot of them were what we would call the top 1%. They were wealthy, but they put their life, their bodies, their wealth on the line, understanding if they lost, they were going to be hung for treason. Like, this wasn't some just like event where they just signed their name to something or retweeted it or posted a meme, and that's all we could seem to do in the GOP right. And then you have your influencers, your podcast core, that come out and say things like, "Oh, we'll just vote GOP in November. If we keep the House and keep the Senate, and we still have the presidency, we'll get things done in by the end of his term." And then nothing gets done, right? Or we have a talk, and I understand the talk, but we're well past what should have been done on this issue. Well, we should just put a moratorium on immigration. We need to start mass deportation. Guys, that still doesn't understand. It still doesn't meet the point that the courts don't have the power that we're giving them, that we're allowing them to have. To say no to the courts. And then pull back their funding whenever they try to take you to court for it. The 14th Amendment is not anyone who is born here has a right to citizenship. That's not what it was. The 14th Amendment was made in particular for slaves who were under our jurisdiction, which is why the phrase and under the jurisdiction of, that's why it's there. Not because, like, it's not saying that because you were born on the land. It has nothing to do with that. Are you under jurisdiction? Are your parents under the jurisdiction or of the country? Are they citizens? The left misinterprets, and the court misinterprets, and every time they've ruled on something of this, they misinterpret it wrong. The writer of the 14th Amendment, his last name's Howard, I can't think of his first name off the top of my head. He explained the clause this way in 1866 when he wrote it. This will not, of course, include persons born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens, who belong to the families of ambassadors or foreign ministers. He then clarified that the clause would include every other class of person born in the United States who are fully subject to U.S. laws. This was written about slavery, or slaves who were now freed getting their citizenship, and eventually could be applied to the American Indians. But it's not about someone from China who's 7 months pregnant who comes to America solely to give birth on American soil. That's not an American citizen. Like, we have issue, and if that's how you interpret it, you're just painfully wrong. Christians need to be a part of this process and take back what we've allowed the secular world. Not for the idea, like I'm not post-millennial and saying this so that we can usher in a golden age. Because I don't actually believe that that's coming. I do genuinely believe that the state of life and the state of the world for the Christian will get harder. I think we will face much more persecution. I'm not a dispensational or premillennial either that says that it's going to get so bad that Christ is going to come down and take the church out and then the tribute. No, my belief is that whether if it gets worse or better, that's not the point. We still have a job to do. I think my issue with postmillennialism is that, well, we have a job to do so that we can usher in, and they're sort of too optimistic for me. Whereas the premillennialists who think that it's going to get worse and then the rapture is going to happen, and so they don't even try to do anything, which is why I think we have two generations that have really been honed in, the boomers and Gen X, who've really honed in on this idea of premillennial dispensationalism of it's going to get so bad, but we don't have to worry about suffering because the church is going to get taken out, and they misinterpret everything, and they have this poor theology. I think that's why they're so apathetic to actually doing something. Excuse me. And I think whether it gets worse or better, I don't know which way. I think it's not going to turn out very good for Christians. I think persecution will be on the rise. I think we will be persecuted for our faith and put under a lot of trials and tribulations. But ultimately, the end of the story is we're going to win because Christ has already won. That's how I look at the end of times. I'm not trying to usher in the kingdom itself. But with that being said, I still have a job to do, and I should love my neighbor. And my neighbor initially starts with my community and my country and my state and all the way down to my own neighborhood, right? I should love them by wanting the best for them. And the best for them is not to have their tax dollars go off to fight a foreign war, go off to provide for money for people who are here illegally and who break our laws. Christians should still be a people of law and order, because our God is a God of law and order. So I think we need to be more politically active, more politically aware, and more politically awakened to what is going on. And that starts not that every sermon has to be political, but I think it was Josh Howerton who I heard it from, and I don't think he's the one that said it originally. He's not getting more political in the pulpit. Politics invaded the church. Because I do agree from a general perspective that you should definitely not make your sermons political. In that, like, you shouldn't go out of your way to make a political statement. I do believe separation of church and state was so that the church was not controlled by the state, but also so that the state. We also had rules like in the colonies, like preachers couldn't run for government because they felt that it would be a conflict of interest. And so I don't think pastors should stand up and make the pulpit on Sunday mornings their political soapbox. But I think Christians in general should be political. And when politics invades theology, when politics invades theological areas, when the government and the courts try to redefine what God defines as marriage, I think Christians have the obligation to speak up against it and to call it out and to preach on what is God's actual purpose and design in marriage and in sexuality in general and all of that. And so the political realm invaded the theological. It wasn't the other way around. And so I think I'll say this. We need to be more politically active, but we also need to be more spiritually awakened. I think part of this not doing anything is because a lot of people just got very apathetic in their faith, and they didn't take it serious, and they thought that they could just go to church on Sundays, watch the ball game, and everything would be fine. And because of that we've fallen asleep at the wheel of this, and we're almost close to losing it. And so I think we still got time, but the window's shutting, and people actually got to put actions to what they say they believe. Right? And so that's how we'll end this. Thank you all for listening. Until next time, next week we will definitely have an episode of Exposit for you all. Have a great 4th of July. I just want to end this with saying, like, remember that, like, the spirit of 1776, for those who want to fight to preserve this wonderful country, this wonderful idea, that spirit is a spirit of sacrifice and action. And so that's my call to action. Like, when you celebrate on the July 4th, remember what actually we're celebrating, right? I think we've kind of romanticized the story. This was a bloody revolution, and that's what it might take to preserve it. And so ask yourself the question while you're celebrating, would I be willing to sacrifice what the founders sacrificed to maintain America, the America they fought for? Thank you all for listening. I will see you all on the next episode.